Policing Minister Chris Philp is with me, representing the government this morning. Hi, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about your subject in a second, but first, Suella Braverman's speech in Washington. She's going to be talking about refugees. How do you define a refugee?
Well, the Refugee Convention was originally written in 1951, and it defined a refugee as someone with a well-founded fear of persecution for a particular reason, for example, political views, religious views, and so on. And that was written with the horrors of the Second World War in mind, and of course people who fear for their life should be protected. Over the years, the definition, sometimes interpreted by the courts, not around the world, has sort of expanded that definition somewhat, and we've seen people who are essentially economic migrants seeking to use asylum claims. We've seen also very large-scale illegal immigration in the US, where the Home Secretary is speaking. I think I'm right in saying this month alone, about 140,000 people have illegally crossed the American border. The European Union has seen very large-scale illegal immigration. So there is an issue that needs to be addressed. We need to get the balance right between, of course, protecting people in need of, who are in genuine fear of persecution, who fear for their lives and so on, but without facilitating or encouraging even large-scale illegal immigration for essentially economic reasons.
Let me give you some scenarios and see what you think, if you'll indulge me, please, Minister. Would an Afghan woman fleeing to the UK, let's say she'd been an interpreter for the British military, would she be allowed to stay in the UK?
Well, we've done better than that. So you mentioned Afghanistan and interpreters. So in the last 2 years since the fall of Kabul, we have legally and safely, and I stress legally and safely, directly brought 24, I think it's about 24,000 Afghans, including interpreters, directly into the UK. That is more than any other European country via safe and legal routes. So this country, the UK, will play its part, of course, its full part, in protecting people like Afghan interpreters where they are at risk. What we don't want to do is encourage people making dangerous journeys across the Channel.
OK, I spent quite a long time talking to the editor of the newspaper who campaigned for many, many months for an Afghan pilot who served alongside the British forces, threatened with deportation to Rwanda. He said there is no safe route. It's impossible to get here by legal route, and he came over on a small boat.
I mean, that simply isn't true. We've got a couple of schemes.
Why would he say it?
Well, maybe he's misinformed. I mean, we've got a couple of schemes, the ARAP scheme and the Iraq scheme, where people who worked with British forces are able to make applications.
He was a pilot and he had to come over on a boat.
Yeah, we've got people currently who've left Afghanistan or in Pakistan that we're now bringing over here. There's the Iraq scheme, which are for people who held civil posts, like senior female judges and politicians in Afghanistan.
So the pilot and the newspaper, Geordie Gred, the editor, were misinformed.
Well, there is a safe and legal route. We've got these schemes.
He says it's impossible to use.
24,000 people have come from Afghanistan safely and legally since August of 2021. 24,000 people.
What about an orphan in Eritrea? Should they be allowed to join their adult sibling in the UK?
So we have a refugee family reunion route. And I think if the child you're referring to, and you're testing my memory on immigration rules, it's been 2 years since I was immigration minister, but I'm going to try.
I've never been immigration minister.
Yeah, if they have no other relation that can look after, if their parents were in Eritrea, there'd be an expectation their parents would look after them.
I said orphans specifically.
So I think if they had no one else to look after them, my understanding of the family reunion rules, based on my memory of 2 years ago, is that they should qualify under family reunion rules.
What if...
But you're testing my memory.
I hope so. What if Rwanda, a plane that we'd sent to Rwanda with those that we had deported, someone managed to get on that plane as a stowaway as it was coming back to the UK, they're gay, would they be allowed to stay in the UK?
If they'd come from where?
Rwanda.
Come from Rwanda?
Yeah, they'd stowed away on the plane on the way back and they were gay. Could they say, I need to stay because otherwise I'm going to be persecuted if I go back to Rwanda?
I think you'd have to look at the specifics of the case.
I'm
not an immigration lawyer. You'd have to look at the specifics of the case.
Lots of grey areas here, they're not there.
The point about the Illegal Immigration Act is that if someone comes from it's designed for people coming from safe countries. So actually, if the person
you say Rwanda is a safe country. Otherwise, we wouldn't be deporting people.
Yeah, and actually, the UN say they are as well, because the UN,
not if you're gay.
the UNHCR themselves.
Not if you're gay.
Let me finish the point. The UNHCR themselves take people to Rwanda under refugee resettlement schemes themselves. The UNHCR think Uganda is safe because they use it themselves. Now, the Illegal Immigration Act is mainly about people who are coming here from France. France is a manifestly safe country.
OK, let me tell you...
Well, let me give you that example, because it's a relevant one to the UK. Nobody should be leaving France on a rubber dinghy to come to the UK.
Discuss France at all.
And that is why the Illegal Immigration Act says those people can't claim asylum.
The Home Secretary is expected to say we will not be able to sustain an asylum system if, in effect, simply being gay or a woman and fearful of discrimination in your own country of origin is sufficient to qualify for protection.
Well, there's a definition of persecution, and the test is whether someone is being persecuted. And if someone is being persecuted, and if someone has come here directly from a place of danger, and I stress directly from a place of danger because that's what the Refugee Convention says, then, of course, their claim should be heard. But where they are coming from a safe country, like France, then our Illegal Immigration Act...
Rwanda, Minister.
Well, the UNHCR themselves think Rwanda is safe, clearly, because they send people there themselves.
Not if you're gay.
Not if
you're gay, and the Home Secretary is saying we will not be able to sustain an asylum system if, in effect, simply being gay or a woman and fearful of discrimination in your country of origin is sufficiently to qualify for protection.
Yeah, people who are being persecuted should and will be protected, unless they've come from a safe country like France on a rubber dinghy, in which case the Illegal Immigration Act says you can't claim asylum. And that is consistent with the Refugee Convention, because the Refugee Convention applies to people who are directly coming from a place of danger. France is not a place of danger, and that is why people coming from France shouldn't be able to claim asylum.
I didn't mention France, Minister. Talk to me
but
about an area that is your area of expertise at the moment, and that is armed police. When was the PM aware that there wasn't enough armed officers on duty?
So I don't know when the PM was briefed. I spoke to the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police on Saturday morning, and within a few hours we arranged for armed forces personnel to be deployed for a period of 48 hours running from Saturday until yesterday afternoon. We did need assistance from the armed forces. They very kindly provided that assistance. As of yesterday afternoon, that was no longer required, partly because Metropolitan Police officers returned to their firearm duties, partly because there was assistance given from other police forces around the country. So as of yesterday afternoon, that military assistance was no longer required. But I would like to put on record my thanks to the armed forces for responding so quickly and so helpfully. OK.
Are armed police officers civilians with guns, or should they be considered a special case?
Well, I mean, as Robert Peel said originally, the police are the public and...
we're going back now.
Well, the police are the public, and those Peelian principles are important. The public are the police and the police are the public. The police represent and protect all of us. They also put themselves in huge danger.
Should they be a special case?
I think we need to be mindful in terms of the legal framework that we are asking the police to go and protect us. And that's a duty we're placing on them to keep us safe. And that does make a police officer, different. Like, you and I can't carry a firearm down the street, right? An armed police officer legally can. So clearly that is different. We need to make sure that, obviously, where misconduct occurs, that gets investigated, but it's got to be done in a way that is reasonable and proportionate. And there are some concerns expressed by some officers, not just recently, but going back over some months, that sometimes these investigations are not reasonable and proportionate and they take a lot too long. So the review we're conducting is designed to make sure those issues get properly considered.
Okay.
So police officers know that they're going to be treated reasonably when they put themselves in danger to protect us and our families, as they do daily.
Just before I let you go, reports that the Prime Minister is alarmed by the escalating cost of HS2. How alarmed are you?
Well, it's gone up a lot. It's roughly tripled, I think, since it was first conceived.
Right.
So no decisions have been taken about the remaining stages of HS2, but I do know the Chancellor and Prime Minister are looking at how the cost can be controlled, and as taxpayers, your viewers and us would want that to happen, but no decisions have been taken. OK,
how alarmed are you at the escalating cost?
Well, I mean, it has gone up a lot, and as a taxpayer myself and representing taxpayers in Croydon, I do want to see taxpayers' money being spent prudently, so I'm pleased that the Chancellor and Prime Minister are looking at getting value for money, looking at controlling the cost. But no decision, to be absolutely clear, no decision has been taken at all on whether, how the rest of the route should get constructed.
Just before I let you go, one final question, if I may. What would you say to Andy Burnham this morning to reassure him that the good people of Manchester are not going to be seen as treated as second-class citizens when it comes to HS2?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're definitely not. I think something like £33 billion has been spent since 2010 on infrastructure projects in the north. £3 billion has been spent on regeneration projects in the north recently as well. So the commitment to the Midlands, the north, the levelling up agenda is absolutely undimmed. What this review is about is just making sure the costs are controlled. And I think any taxpayer anywhere in the country would want to see that kind of prudence applied.
Sure, but will they get shiny fast trains or not?
Well, I hope we get as many shiny fast trains as possible for our money, but we've got to look at the sort of value for money and just make sure the costs are being properly scrutinised and properly controlled. And I'd like to see that process happen and give us as many new trains and as many miles as track as possible for the taxpayers' money that we're spending.
Could chat to you all programme, Minister, but I must let you go. You've got others to talk to. It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.